The Soldier's World. In the distant future, humanity had managed to make its place among the stars. Earth was part of the Galactic Alliance, a group of powerful alien civilizations that worked together to keep peace in the galaxy. However, humans were still seen as the newcomers in this vast universe. The more advanced alien races in the Alliance looked down on humans, seeing them as weak, unskilled, and primitive. Captain Alex Ryder, a soldier in the Galactic Defense Corps, knew this all too well. He joined the Corps hoping to see exciting battles and explore alien worlds. But reality had been much different. For the last 2 years, Alex had been stationed on a dull, quiet outpost on the edge of the galaxy. His job was simple: guard duty with little to no action. Every day, he checked patrols, logged reports, and watched the stars in silence. The outpost itself was a small, lonely structure surrounded by empty space and distant stars. His fellow soldiers were mostly humans too, all assigned to this low-risk area where nothing ever happened. Whenever he asked for a more challenging post, his superiors told him that he should be grateful for such a safe assignment. After all, they thought humans couldn't handle real combat. Alex wasn't weak, though, and he wasn't afraid of danger. He'd trained hard and had won several commendations back on Earth, proving his skills again and again. But out here, it didn't seem to matter. No matter how hard he worked, it was never enough. He felt trapped in a world where aliens decided his worth. Despite this, Alex still hoped for something greater. He had dreams of becoming a hero, someone who could change the way other species saw humans. He wanted to prove that humans weren't weak, that they could stand alongside even the most powerful alien warriors. But as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, that dream began to feel more and more distant. Then, everything changed. One day, as Alex was finishing his routine patrol, the outpost's alarms went off. At first, he thought it was just a drill or some kind of technical error. The alarms almost never went off out here, but when he looked at the radar, his heart skipped a beat. Several unidentified ships were approaching at high speed. These weren't Alliance ships. They had a harsh, spiked design and a dark, ominous glow. The Drakari had come. The Drakari were known as one of the most feared empires in the galaxy. They were ruthless, powerful, and known for their brutal conquests. No one ever expected them to attack such a small outpost. This place had no valuable resources, no strategic advantage, just a group of human soldiers no one cared about. Alex's heart pounded as he realized this was no mistake. The Drakari were here to destroy them. He looked around at his fellow soldiers. Some of them were scared, others were confused, but they all turned to him, looking for direction. In that moment, Alex knew that his life was about to change forever. This was his chance, the chance he'd been waiting for. Whether he was ready or not, he had to lead. The first battle. The alarms blared across the outpost as Alex Ryder quickly moved into action. He barked out orders, snapping his fellow soldiers into focus. There was no time to waste. The Drakari ships were already closing in, and everyone knew what that meant. This wasn't just a raid. The Drakari didn't attack unless they intended to destroy everything in their path. Get to your stations. Arm yourselves. Alex shouted as he grabbed his weapon and helmet. His heart pounded, but he pushed the fear aside. He had trained for moments like this, and now it was time to put that training to the test. Outside the thick windows of the outpost, he could see the Drakari ships drawing nearer. They were dark, jagged, and menacing, unlike anything Alex had ever faced before. Their engines left trails of green energy in space, casting an eerie light over the base. He couldn't shake the feeling that these ships looked like metal predators, circling their prey. In the control room, the screens were filled with warning signs flashing in bright red. The communication system crackled as his fellow soldiers scrambled to reach their posts. A few glanced at Alex, their faces pale, clearly terrified. They were ordinary soldiers, like him, who'd never expected a real fight out here. As the first blast shook the outpost, the ground trembled, and several screens flickered. The Drakari had fired on them. Alex braced himself, trying to keep his team focused. "Stay strong," he shouted over the noise. "We have to hold them off until help arrives." The outpost defenses kicked in, shooting energy beams toward the incoming Drakari ships. But it wasn't enough. The Drakari ships dodged skillfully, avoiding most of the blasts. Moments later, they fired back, and the walls shook as explosions rocked the outpost. "Commanders down," one of the soldiers yelled, and Alex's heart sank. Their commanding officer had been hit in the first strike, leaving Alex as the highest-ranking soldier. He could see the panic in his team's eyes. They were looking to him, hoping for some kind of miracle. "Focus," Alex commanded, his voice steady. "They're not invincible. Aim for the engines, and keep moving." With no choice but to fight back, Alex led the team to the defense line. The Drakari ground troops began pouring out of their ships, their dark armor gleaming under the emergency lights. They were larger and stronger than any soldiers Alex had faced before, their eyes glowing with cold, merciless intent. Fighting side by side with his team, Alex pushed himself to his limits, using every bit of his training to keep the Drakari back. He shouted commands, adjusted their positions, and kept everyone moving, refusing to let fear take over. Slowly, they began to make a stand. For every human that fell, Alex and his team took down 2 Drakari soldiers. Time seemed to stretch as they fought, every second feeling like an hour. Finally, the sound of backup arriving reached their ears. The Alliance forces had noticed the attack and were coming to help. As the Drakari began to retreat, Alex looked around at his exhausted, bloodied team. They had survived the impossible, and they had done it together. He realized this was just the beginning. Today, he had proven something, to himself and to everyone else. He wasn't just a human soldier. He was a leader. The impossible mission. Word of Alex Rider's bravery in the Drakari attack spread quickly through the Galactic Alliance. Despite the high-ranking commander's skepticism of human soldiers, they couldn't ignore what he had accomplished. Against all odds, Alex and his team had held off the Drakari long enough for backup to arrive. Now, Alliance leaders wanted to see what else he could do. Alex was soon summoned to the Alliance capital, a massive space station floating above the planet Cetra Prime. The station was a marvel of advanced technology and alien architecture, filled with the most powerful figures in the galaxy. Walking through the polished corridors, Alex felt a mixture of pride and nerves. This was his chance to prove himself again. He was led to a room with towering walls and a long table surrounded by alien leaders. They were from races he had only read about, intelligent, powerful beings who held humanity's fate in their hands. At the head of the table sat General Thalox, a fierce, silver-skinned alien with piercing blue eyes. He wasted no time getting to the point. "Captain Ryder," General Thalox began, his voice steady and cold. "You did well defending your outpost, but now we have a more dangerous mission. A mission that requires courage, intelligence, and resilience." His eyes fixed on Alex. "We believe you're the best choice." Alex felt a spark of excitement, mixed with anxiety. He hadn't expected this kind of attention so soon. "What's the mission, sir?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. The general tapped a holographic screen, displaying an image of a massive Drakari fortress on an unknown planet. The fortress was fortified with high walls, energy shields, and rows of deadly-looking cannons. "This," General Thalox said, "is one of the Drakari's main bases. We have reason to believe it holds critical information about their plans and a weapon powerful enough to wipe out entire planets." Alex's eyes widened. A superweapon. This was beyond anything he had imagined. "We need a small team to infiltrate the base, locate the data, and retrieve it," General Thalox continued. "However, this mission will be extremely dangerous. The base is heavily guarded, and the Drakari are known to show no mercy. In other words, This is a mission most wouldn't survive." Alex swallowed hard. He knew what the general was really saying. This mission was a long shot. Many believed it would fail, but he also knew that this was exactly what he had been waiting for, a chance to prove that humans were more than just underdogs. "I'm ready, sir," Alex replied firmly, determination shining in his eyes. "When do we leave?" The general nodded approvingly, and Alex was given his team, a group of elite alien soldiers, each with unique skills. Among them was Commander Vex, a tall, silver-armored alien with sharp features and a cold demeanor. Vex didn't hide his skepticism about Alex's role. "I'm not sure why they sent a human on this mission," he muttered. "This isn't a basic training drill." Alex met his gaze steadily. "Just wait. You'll see what humans can do." As they prepared for departure, Alex knew this would be the most dangerous mission of his life. The odds were stacked against them, but he was ready. He had survived one battle against the Drakari. Now he would face them again, with even more at stake. The mission wasn't just about survival. It was about showing the galaxy that humans had earned their place in the stars. Team tensions and a new bond. The journey to the Drakari base was filled with tension. Alex Rider could feel the eyes of his alien teammates on him, silently judging. He was the only human on the team, and everyone knew it. Commander Vex, the team leader, made his dislike of humans clear from the start. Tall, sharp-featured, and cold, Vex had fought in dozens of battles and clearly didn't think Alex belonged here. During their preparation meetings, Vex rarely spoke to Alex directly. Instead, he would make comments to the others, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I suppose the Alliance is truly desperate if they're sending humans on critical missions," he said once, not even bothering to look at Alex. His tone was cool, almost mocking, and Alex felt a flush of anger, but kept it to himself. He was here to prove a point, not to start fights with his own team. Other teammates, like Lyra, a quick and stealthy alien with scales like emerald armor, followed Vex's lead. She hardly spoke to Alex, though once she muttered, "Hope you can keep up, human." Every word reminded him of the deep gap between them. It was clear that they thought of him as weak, a burden in a mission that required the best. Yet Alex wasn't here to win their approval. He had trained hard, prepared himself, and now he was here to complete the mission. He kept his focus on the goal and did his best to ignore the cold stares and quiet remarks. After days of silent travel, they finally reached the Drakari planet. The air was thick and humid, filled with an unusual green fog that clung to everything. Their team moved through dense, dark forests, each shadow seeming to hold a hidden enemy. Every soldier was on high alert, senses sharp and weapons ready. Then, without warning, a Drakari patrol ambushed them. The aliens appeared out of the shadows, their red eyes gleaming, and in seconds, blasters and energy weapons lit up the dark forest. The fight was brutal, with Drakari soldiers charging them from all sides. In the chaos, Alex saw Commander Vex pinned down by a Drakari soldier twice his size, struggling against the creature's iron grip. Without hesitating, Alex rushed forward, firing his blaster to weaken the Drakari's hold on Vex. In a swift move, he used his combat knife to take down the Drakari soldier, saving Vex. For a moment, there was silence as Vex looked up at him, surprised. "Thanks," Vex said quietly, clearly reluctant to acknowledge the help. Alex nodded, brushing off the encounter. "We're a team," he replied simply, his tone steady. "No one gets left behind." The rest of the team witnessed this moment, and something shifted. They still didn't trust him fully, but there was a new respect in their eyes. Lyra, who had been silent before, gave him a brief nod. Not bad, for a human. As they continued on their mission, Alex could feel the difference. The team began to share information with him, moving together in a more coordinated way. Vex, though still distant, no longer sneered at him. The battle had forged a small bond between them. Alex knew they still had a long way to go, But this was a start. Now, they were fighting not just as individuals, but as a real team. They hadn't yet reached the Drakari base, but they had taken an important first step towards surviving the mission. Together, infiltration and revelation. The enemy's plan. The night was dark, and the air felt heavy as Alex Rider and his team crept through the shadows toward the Drakari fortress. The massive structure loomed ahead, surrounded by energy shields and tall, spiked towers that reached up like claws into the sky. Each of the soldiers moved with silent precision, their senses heightened as they approached their target. For Alex, this was the real test. If they were caught now, there would be no second chances. Commander Vex led the way, his eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. Alex followed close behind, his blaster ready and his mind focused. The team had to reach the fortress walls without being detected by the patrolling guards. The Drakari soldiers moved in pairs, their armor glinting faintly under the base's eerie green lights. They were larger, stronger, and better armed, but Alex knew that with stealth, they might have a chance. "Stay close, and don't make a sound," Vex whispered over the comm, his voice tense. Alex nodded, glancing at the rest of the team. They moved as one, staying low and blending into the shadows as they neared a gap in the fortress wall, which they discovered through careful observation. The gap led them to a service hatch, barely large enough for them to squeeze through. One by one, they slipped inside, entering a narrow corridor lined with pipes and glowing energy cables. Alex's heart pounded as he listened for any sound of guards nearby. The fortress was quiet, but it held a dangerous, almost suffocating silence. After several tense minutes, they reached the central chamber. Here, they found rows of computers, alien tech screens, and strange machinery humming with energy. In the center of the room was a large holographic map of the galaxy, displaying key Alliance planets marked in red. Alex felt a chill run down his spine as he realized what he was seeing: the Drakari's plan for a galaxy-wide invasion. Vex moved forward, studying the map with narrowed eyes. "They've marked every major Alliance planet," he murmured, his voice low. "This isn't just about territory. They're planning to wipe us out completely." Lyra tapped on one of the computers, pulling up files that showed rows of weapons data and blueprints for a superweapon unlike anything they'd seen before. This weapon was capable of mass destruction, designed to obliterate entire planets in a single strike. "This must be their new superweapon," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "If they finish building this, no planet in the Alliance will be safe." The reality hit them all hard. Alex clenched his fists, realizing the weight of what they'd uncovered. This wasn't just a mission. This was a race against time. They had to stop the Drakari before this weapon was unleashed on the galaxy. But just as they began downloading the data onto their devices, an alarm blared. Alex's heart skipped a beat as the lights turned red, and the room filled with a harsh, mechanical voice speaking in Drakari. The enemy had detected them. "Move. Now," Vex ordered, his voice sharp. The team sprang into action, grabbing what files they could before sprinting back toward the exit. Alarms echoed through the hallways, and they could hear the heavy footsteps of Drakari soldiers closing in. They raced through the narrow corridors, ducking behind walls and firing at the Drakari who blocked their path. Each second counted. They had the enemy's secrets, their entire plan, and the location of the superweapon, but they had to make it out alive. As they neared the exit hatch, Alex glanced back to see Vex covering their rear, firing with a determined look in his eyes. Despite their rocky start, they were now united in a single purpose: escape and warn the galaxy. Betrayal and sacrifice. The team raced through the Drakari fortress, the alarms wailing echoing off the cold, metallic walls. Alex Rider led the way, clutching the stolen data drive that held the Drakari's invasion plans. Behind him, Commander Vex and the rest of the team fought to keep up, firing at any guards who blocked their path. They were so close to escaping, but something felt wrong. Alex could sense the tension in the air. As they rounded a corner toward the exit hatch, Vex suddenly stopped. He looked around, his expression unreadable. Alex slowed, glancing back at him, feeling a chill settle in his stomach. There was something in Vex's eyes, a cold determination mixed with guilt. "Vex, what's wrong?" Alex asked, his voice low. Vex hesitated, his hand resting on his weapon. He avoided Alex's gaze, and for a moment, he seemed almost regretful. "I didn't want it to be like this, Ryder," Vex said, his voice barely a whisper. "But orders are orders." Alex's heart sank as he realized what was happening. Betrayal. Vex had been working with the Drakari all along. "You're with them," Alex said, his voice filled with shock and disbelief. The rest of the team stared, equally stunned. "It's not what you think," Vex replied, his voice cold. "The Drakari offered me a deal. They believe humans are weak, but they respect strength. By joining them, I ensure survival, my own, and maybe even our people's." "So you'd betray the entire galaxy," Alex said, anger boiling in his veins. He thought about all the lives that would be destroyed, all the planets that would fall if the Drakari succeeded. Vex gave a slight shrug, his expression hard. "Survival means sacrifices, Ryder. Something you'll understand someday, if you live that long." With that, Vex raised his weapon, but before he could fire, Lyra, their teammate, leaped forward. She knocked his arm to the side, forcing him to miss. "Alex, go," she shouted, her voice fierce. "I'll hold him off." "No, Lyra," Alex protested, but Lyra shook her head, her green eyes determined. "Get the data to the Alliance. Stop the invasion. This is bigger than all of us," she said firmly. Then, without waiting for a reply, she turned to face Vex, her blaster ready. Alex felt a surge of gratitude and sadness. He didn't want to leave her, but he knew she was right. Every second counted. He gave her a final nod and sprinted down the corridor, clutching the data drive tightly. Behind him, the sounds of battle echoed through the halls. Lyra's voice rang out, fierce and unyielding, as she fought Vex with everything she had. Alex's chest tightened, but he kept moving, forcing himself not to look back. He couldn't waste her sacrifice. Reaching the exit hatch, Alex blasted it open and rushed outside, feeling the night air hit his face. Ahead, he saw the extraction ship waiting, its lights a beacon of hope. As he ran toward it, he knew that Lyra's sacrifice, her bravery, had given him this chance. He climbed into the ship, looking back one last time. The fortress was fading into the distance, but he knew the weight of what he carried. The cost had been high, and the betrayal deep, but he had to honor Lyra's sacrifice. As the ship launched into space, Alex vowed he would see this mission through. The Drakari's plan would not succeed, not if he could help it. The escape plan. As the extraction ship soared away from the Drakari fortress, Alex Ryder sat in a corner, his heart heavy with grief and determination. Lyra had given everything to hold off Commander Vex, allowing him to escape. He gripped the data drive tightly, knowing that it contained vital information about the Drakari's invasion plans and the superweapon they were building. But now he had to figure out how to get this information to the Galactic Alliance before it was too late. The pilot, a seasoned alien named Zora, kept glancing at the control panel, her hands deftly maneuvering the ship through the dark expanse of space. "We have to get to the Alliance base on Cetra Prime fast," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "If the Drakari figure out we're gone, they'll send a fleet after us." Alex nodded, his mind racing. They needed a plan, and fast. "Can we use any of the ship's stealth systems?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm despite the weight of the situation. Zara shook her head. "Not without diverting power from our shields. If we do that, we'll be vulnerable. We need to keep our defenses up until we reach the base." Just then, the ship's alarms blared. A red light flashed on the control panel, signaling an incoming ship. Alex's heart sank. They found us already, he shouted, looking out the viewport. A Drakari fighter ship was closing in on them, its engines glowing with deadly energy. Zara cursed under her breath as she adjusted the controls. I'll try to outmaneuver it, but we need to think fast. Can you come up with a distraction? Alex's mind raced. We could use the ship's flares. If we launch them at the right moment, it might confuse their targeting systems. He remembered his training. Distractions could buy them precious time. Good idea, Zara replied, already typing commands into the ship's console. But we'll need to time it perfectly. The fighter will shoot at us the moment it locks on. Alex took a deep breath, focusing. On my count. 3, 2, 1, now. He shouted as Zara launched the flares into space. The bright flashes erupted against the dark backdrop of the stars, creating a stunning display. The Drakari fighter hesitated, its targeting system momentarily confused by the bright lights. Zara seized the opportunity, hitting the thrusters and veering the ship hard to the left. They shot forward, narrowly avoiding enemy fire. But the Drakari ship quickly recalibrated and began to pursue them again. Alex could see its weapons charging for another attack. We can't keep this up forever, he yelled, gripping the edge of his seat. Zara's eyes narrowed as she scanned the space ahead. There's an asteroid field up ahead. If we can get into it, we can lose them among the rocks. They won't follow us in. Then let's go, Alex shouted, feeling a rush of adrenaline. Zara piloted the ship into the field, expertly navigating through the massive boulders and debris. The ship shook as they narrowly avoided collision, but Alex felt a surge of hope. Behind them, the Drakari fighter followed but struggled to keep up in the chaotic environment. Alex glanced back, his heart pounding. I think it's working, he shouted, his voice filled with excitement. Just as they rounded a massive asteroid, they heard a loud explosion. What was that? Alex asked, startled. Zara grinned. Looks like they couldn't handle the asteroids. They crashed into one of them. Relief washed over Alex, but he knew they couldn't celebrate yet. They still had to reach Cetra Prime and warn the Alliance about the Drakari's plans. As they maneuvered through the asteroid field, Alex's thoughts turned to Lyra. He vowed that her sacrifice would not be in vain. They would succeed in their mission. Together, they would stop the Drakari and protect the galaxy. Final showdown. As the extraction ship broke free from the asteroid field, Alex Rider felt a mix of relief and anxiety. They were finally headed towards Cetra Prime, the headquarters of the Galactic Alliance. The ship's alarms were silent now, but the weight of their mission hung heavily in the air. They had to warn the Alliance about the Drakari invasion plans and the powerful superweapon that could destroy entire planets. Zara piloted the ship expertly, her eyes fixed on the glowing blue planet ahead. We're almost there, she said, her voice steady. But we need to prepare for a warm welcome. The Drakari won't let us go that easily. Alex nodded, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. He had already lost Lyra in this fight. He couldn't afford to lose anyone else. What's our plan once we land? He asked. We'll head straight to the command center, Zara replied. We need to download the data and alert the leaders. If we can convince them in time, we might be able to gather a force to strike back. As they entered the atmosphere, alarms blared once more. Incoming Drakari ships, Zara shouted, her hands gripping the controls tightly. The ship rocked as enemy fighters surrounded them, their weapons charging for an attack. Can we outrun them? Alex asked, his heart pounding. Zara shook her head. They have us outnumbered. We need to fight back. She flipped switches on the control panel, activating the ship's defense systems. Get ready. With a burst of energy, Zara fired back at the Drakari ships, and explosions lit up the sky. Alex joined in, aiming his blaster out the viewport and shooting at the enemy ships. He felt the rush of adrenaline as he targeted the nearest fighter, his heart racing with determination. One by one, they took down the enemy fighters, but more kept coming. The ship shook with every blast, and Alex felt the fear creeping in. "We have to get to the command center," he yelled over the sound of explosions. Zara nodded, her eyes fierce with determination. "I'll create a distraction. You get to the center and upload that data. We can't let it fall into their hands." "Are you sure?" Alex asked, hesitating. He didn't want to leave her behind. "There's no time. Go," Zora shouted, already maneuvering the ship to draw fire away from Alex. With a heavy heart, Alex unbuckled himself and moved toward the exit hatch. "I'll come back for you," he promised, feeling a mix of fear and hope. "Just focus on the mission," Zara replied, her voice steady. "I'll hold them off as long as I can." Taking a deep breath, Alex pushed through the hatch and jumped onto the landing platform outside. The command center loomed ahead, a massive building buzzing with activity. He could see Alliance soldiers rushing to prepare for battle, and he felt a spark of hope. Rushing inside, Alex found the main computer terminal and plugged in the data drive. As he uploaded the information, alarms rang through the command center. "Drakari ships are breaching our defenses," a soldier shouted, panic in his voice. "Just a little longer," Alex urged, his fingers flying over the keyboard. He could feel the weight of the galaxy resting on his shoulders. The countdown ticked down, and he glanced outside to see the chaos unfolding as Drakari soldiers landed and began their attack. Finally, the upload completed. The data was now in the hands of the Alliance leaders. "We have the information," Alex shouted to the nearby soldiers. "We can fight back." But just as he turned to join the fray, a figure stepped forward from the shadows. "Commander Vex, you're too late, Ryder," he said, his voice filled with malice. "The Drakari will win, and you're about to die here." Anger surged through Alex as he faced his betrayer. "You think you can stop me? I won't let you destroy everything I fought for." With that, the final showdown began. Alex lunged forward, his blaster aimed at Vex. The two clashed in a fierce battle, energy blasts lighting up the room as they fought. In this moment, Alex knew he was fighting not just for himself, but for Lyra, for Zara, and for the entire galaxy. The outcome of the battle was uncertain, but Alex felt one thing clear in his heart. He would not let betrayal win. He would fight to the end. Legacy of a hero. The battle for Cetra Prime had been fierce. The Alliance forces, armed with the vital information Alex Ryder had brought, pushed back against the Drakari invaders. But the victory came at a high cost. As the smoke cleared and the sounds of battle faded, Alex stood among the ruins of the command center, feeling the weight of the loss and the burden of responsibility. The Drakari had retreated, but not without significant damage. Many brave soldiers had fallen in the fight, including Zara, who had sacrificed herself to give Alex the chance to warn the Alliance. Grief washed over him as he remembered her fierce determination, her unwavering spirit. They had fought together, and now she was gone. As the dust settled, Alex felt the eyes of the Alliance leaders upon him. They were discussing their next steps, but he could sense their hesitation. "What now?" someone asked, their voice heavy with uncertainty. "We've pushed them back, but they will come again. Now we prepare," Alex spoke up, surprising himself with his own confidence. "We know their plans, and we can't let them regroup. We need to launch a counteroffensive. We can take the fight to them." The leaders exchanged glances, uncertain at first. But as Alex laid out his strategy, detailing the locations of the Drakari forces and their superweapon, he saw their resolve strengthen. They listened to him, absorbing every word. Alex felt a sense of purpose blooming within him, something he had never felt before. Days turned into weeks as the Alliance rallied their forces, using Alex's information to strike at key Drakari strongholds across the galaxy. He was no longer just a soldier, he had become a leader. Soldiers began to recognize him, their respect growing with each victory they achieved. He remembered Lyra's words. "This is bigger than all of us." He now understood what she meant. He was fighting not just for survival, but for a future that honored the sacrifices of his friends. Finally, the day came when the Alliance was ready to launch a full-scale attack on the Drakari homeworld. The plan was set, and the fleet was assembled. As Alex stood on the bridge of the flagship, he looked out at the vastness of space, the stars twinkling like distant hopes. His heart raced with a mix of fear and determination. "Are you ready, Commander Ryder?" asked a young officer beside him, admiration clear in her eyes. "I am," Alex replied, feeling the weight of the moment. He knew the risks. This mission could lead to their ultimate victory or their complete destruction. As they approached the Drakari homeworld, the ship's alarms sounded. "Prepare for battle," a voice called out. Alex took a deep breath, steadying himself. The time for action had come. The fleet engaged in a fierce battle, blaster fire lighting up the void of space. Alex fought alongside his allies, his heart filled with a sense of duty. Every moment brought him closer to the enemy, closer to the legacy he wanted to leave behind. As the battle raged on, Alex found himself face to face with Commander Vex once more. Their final confrontation was fierce, echoing with the pain of betrayal and the hope of redemption. In that moment, Alex remembered why he fought. It was not just for himself or for glory, but for the friends he had lost and the future they had dreamed of together. With a final burst of energy, Alex defeated Vex, bringing an end to the Drakari threat once and for all. The victory was hard-won, and the cost had been steep, but they had secured a future for countless worlds. In the aftermath, as the galaxy began to heal, Alex Ryder was celebrated as a hero. He had stood against overwhelming odds, faced betrayal, and emerged stronger. But he knew that being a hero was not just about glory. It was about sacrifice, unity, and the bonds formed in battle. Years later, people would tell stories of the brave human soldier who defied all odds, inspiring future generations to stand up for what was right. The legacy of Alex Ryder would live on, reminding everyone that even in the darkest times, hope and courage could light the way.